Welcome to Easy Style with Sami. I'm your host, Sami Bedell-Mulhern. Each episode, I invite a friend, family member, colleague, or just someone I've met on this journey called life to come and share their personal style and approach to business, parenting, life, and everything in between. You'll hear motivational and inspirational stories that will help you refine and build your own personal style. Remember, style is easy when it comes from within. Hi there, and welcome to another episode. I do want to just do a quick trigger warning here for you. This episode does talk a little bit about addiction and sexual abuse, so I just want to put that out there in case that's something that you would prefer not to listen to and you're not surprised. But it's a great episode, so please give it a listen. Hey friends, please join me today in welcoming my guest, Cindy Starke. Cindy, thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you.
Yeah. Well, and I always kind of start off with how I know my guests. And this time is a little bit different because Cindy and I have actually never met. So we connected to talk about being guests on podcasts. And I just loved kind of her intro and the story. And so I'm excited to hear your journey and your story and learn alongside our listeners here. So Cindy, I'd love for you to just kind of tell us a little bit about your background, who you are, what you do, all the good stuff.
Okay. Yes. So I think I'm the only doctor that I've ever met that went into medicine the way that I went into medicine. And it was through, a series of unfortunate events when I was a child. But I am from a family not of doctors. My mom and every other woman in her life are hairdressers, and my dad and every other man in his life and family were like electricians or farmers or gardeners or just really like salt of the earth kind of people. And my brother had something terrible happen to him when he was younger, and to escape that, he turned to drugs and alcohol. And I kind of was sheltered from that. I knew there was some tension in the house, but I never really understood why it happened, what had caused it. And then my brother started hanging around with other boys that did drugs and alcohol. And I was the baby of the family. So I'm 14, and here's my brother and all his friends at 19. And then I had a sister who was 18, but she was always off at her boyfriend's house. And my mom and dad thought it would be a great time with little Cindy by herself at 14 and a bunch of drunk and stoned and high 19-year-old boys to go spend a lot of their evenings up the street at friends' houses. And, I can't go back and wonder why they did that, why they made that decision. And my brother would have parties. And to add insult to injury, sometimes not only would there be parties in my house, and I was there kind of just very vulnerable as a young girl going through puberty, but also they had, some of them had been kicked out of their house. And so they lived with us. And so it was just all too familiar. Everybody was too familiar with each other, too comfortable with each other in my house. And I would find that these young men, I don't know who they were because it was in the middle of the night and it was pitch black, but they would find their way into my bedroom when I was asleep. And they would explore my body with, thank God, only their hands, but still things they did not need to be doing to my body with their hands. And I could not speak up, Sami. I could not tell my mom and dad what was happening. I thought my brother had gotten into enough trouble as it was. I didn't want to be the source of my dad getting mad anymore. So I just stuffed it, shoved it, act like it didn't happen, and just said to myself, without telling anybody, I'm going to get the farther crap away from this family and this house and my brother, because he had that failure to launch thing going on where the older he got, the more he just kept living at home. My sister grew up and got married and was zoom, like out of there, like Roadrunner, so fast. My brother just stayed there. And it was this 14-year-old me, 19-year-old brother, and he just wouldn't leave. And he just brought in just a lot of problems. And so I kind of was the first person to go to college, but I went off to college and I was just bound and determined to never go back to to their way of being, and kind of I didn't want to be like them. And so I said, well, I know one thing they're not doing in this house, in this family I got born into. No one seems like they're getting educated. So so they're good people, don't get me wrong, but just made some bad decisions. And so I went to medical school, and then I went to graduate school, and I've been a doctor for 30 years, and no one else has ever hurt me. Knock on wood. I've protected myself really well, and no one ever hurt my daughter. I have a 21 and a 19-year-old son and daughter. No one ever hurt them too. And I just kind of at the time, and we can get more into my story later, but at the time I just said, I'm going to make it my mission on this earth, because of what happened to me, it's not going to happen to my daughter. And so I was very, very protective. I was like into Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts. I was a protector of children when I was a mom of little ones. And so that's kind of my story and how I ended up here, even though it's through a sad turn of events.
Well, and and I'm so sorry that is your experience. And I love how you've turned it into a positive framework for yourself and how you kind of move through the world. But how do you, because I think it goes either one of two directions, right? Either you fall into the same cycle or you pull yourself out of it. But I'm always interested in learning, like, what do you think it was about you, or was there someone, or like, how were you able to kind of make that decision when nobody else is modeling that for you? Like, how did you know that education was going to be kind of your path out, and that this was your way of kind of making a different story?
I will just tell you how it happened. I'm not telling you that I had this thought in my brain to go and do this, but like, looking back, I wondered the same thing all the time, because my sister tried to go to dental hygiene school and it just didn't last. My brother went to heating and air conditioning school. He did graduate from that. And she became a cosmetologist, and cut hair. But I think what happened, Sammy, is that I noticed in high school, I was making straight A's, and I was with two other people. So there were 3 valedictorians. And those 2 other kids went to college. And just because college was nothing, that was a Buckner thing to do, I said, well, gosh, if Andrew Beasley and Nicole Wells went to college and I'm a valedictorian with them, I should go to college too. So I asked my mom and dad for permission to apply to college. And you know what my mother told me? She said she herself had wanted to apply to college when she was my age, but her mom and dad told her that they didn't have enough money. And I'm like, oh goodness, is she about to tell me that she doesn't have enough money to send me to college? Like, where's this conversation going? And she said, but you know what? Because your brother and your sister didn't go to college, we can afford to take you. I said, okay, good. Thank goodness, because that's what everybody else that's as smart as me is doing. And I just think that's what I need to do. And I was dating a guy at the time. He ended up becoming the father of my 2 children. But I was dating a guy at the time where everybody in their family went to college. And so Mr. Starke, my father-in-law, he told me that he just kind of like asked me, where are you going to go to college? I mean, he didn't even say, are you going to go to college? He assumed it was going to happen. And so it just made my little 15-year-old brain, because that's when I met, his son, and 15-year-old brain realized, wow, I don't even have to decide, am I going to? I get to decide, where am I going to? And all of his boys were going to University of Georgia. So I just went to University of Georgia too, and I got in. And so, yeah, I think it was just the valedictorian thing. And then the boy I was dating, his father, just random people that were in my life at that time. It was not a thought of my own. I would have never dreamed of it, that it was impossible for me.
That's so interesting. But I still think, to give you a little bit of credit, and granted, I don't know you, so I'm just pulling this out, but I think also there is that willingness to accept that advice that's being given to you.
Yes.
So I think that is maybe just an inherent trait in you that is different than maybe your siblings, and why you were able to complete your schooling and do what you've done, as opposed to kind of the other side of that, because I think a lot of times we have to be willing to take the advice. Like, we're scared to do what we know is before us that nobody's ever done before. You had no idea what that experience was going to be like, or had anybody to kind of help you walk through that. But there is part of your personality that is still like, you know what, I'm willing to take this risk. This seems like the better option.
Well,
And I feel like that's
I
carried you through multiple decisions in your career, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I do I don't know what to think about astrology because I don't know anything about it. Like I don't study it at all, but I keep attracting these people into my orbit and I'll hear things that they say or they'll tell me to download this app or they'll do my chart design readout or whatever. And I have something I pronounce it Uranus is some planet that's in my, where the stars and planets were on the moment I was born. And supposedly that is this major force of independence and breaking out of conformity and kind of like, um, just kind of being a trailblazer. And so I would say that has always been me. I remember I wanted some money when I was golly, Sammy, I think I was like 12 or 13 years old and I wanted some money to buy something. I can't remember what it was. I think I wanted to buy Jordache jeans and a Gloria Vanderbilt shirt. And my mom and dad didn't have enough money to buy those. And so I said, I'm going to start a business and to make my money so I can buy what I want to wear. And I went and learned how to decorate cakes. I went to a cake decorating store, took a little tiny class with all these older women. They were all in their 40s, and I was literally 12 or 13. And I learned how to sell cakes. I bought the ingredients for $1 and I sold the cakes for $10. And I got my jeans that I wanted. So, yeah, there is something in me that just where if there's something I want, I'm going to get after it. And I knew one thing, I couldn't keep going home to my brother's house and I was not ready to get married. Mm-hmm. And so I said, well, only two ways out of your parents' house is marriage or a job. I wasn't ready to get a job. And so I said, okay, school, that sounds great. And it was just the best decision. And it was scary, especially going to grad school and medical school was even scarier. But I found comfort in numbers, and there was always a bunch of other people around me doing the same thing. So I just kept at it.
Okay, but let's fast forward because you just said you're comfortable in numbers and groups, but you also mentioned you've always had this kind of trailblazing attitude. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you quit your medical career to become an entrepreneur and do something a little bit different. So like what kind of brought that up and how did you have the kind of guts to leave something behind that's, pretty stable and prominent and, a good sign of success and all of that stuff?
Yeah. So I was in a relationship with my kid's dad, and he was really into me keeping that job as a doctor. But I got myself into a business class, Sammy. It was called Clients on Demand. It was based out of California. And I was surrounded by, every month there were, I think, 100? I think there was 100 of us. People that just had a lot of, we call ourselves like the light warriors, people that just want to bring light and love and healing into the world. People from real estate agents to doctors to, everybody in between wanting to build an online business course. And so I was surrounded by, so I joined that in late 2018. And I was surrounded by people that had much more of a lifestyle that I wanted, which was all you need is a laptop and an internet connection, and you can like make an impact on people's lives. My kid's dad did not want me to leave medicine. I really, really wanted to. And it took me 4 years. The pandemic really kind of helped to clarify and purify all of that out of me, what I was unhappy with. And I did have to leave my kid's dad to be able to break out because he was so unsupportive. And then I had this Clients on Demand, like all these people modeling this other business model. And I was doing what they told me to do. And then I stayed in medicine, even though I retired, I stayed in only 9 days a month. I mean, I can work 2 days a month or I could work 31 days a month. I just now am a 1099 employee instead of like this full-time W-2 employee. And I just found some hospitals that would love moonlighters. And so they just let me work whatever shifts work into my schedule. And, but it really did. It took a lot of belief in myself. It took a lot of being around other entrepreneurs that were doing it too, because even my mom and dad didn't believe that I could replace that income or have this stability. But it's been such a good thing for me because it satisfies that independent trailblazer part of me, and I get to do a little bit of both now.
Oh, that. So what is it that you're doing now? How are you helping and supporting people? Because clearly, going into medical practice, excuse me, and supporting people, like there's a very much giving back and caring spirit about you. So, kind of, what are you doing now to support people?
Yes, I'll tell you. When it happened more during COVID than anything else that I've ever seen. But I started looking around me and I saw that there were all of these men and women that were taking care of patients, and we were doing it without a lot of protection. Like they would, at the beginning, they would give us one mask and we had to wear it for 2 weeks. They were rationing out everything that we had to kind of keep us safe and protected. And I noticed that people were scared and people were stressed and lonely and unsupported. And I said, who's taking care of the healthcare workers? These healthcare workers are taking care of all these patients, but who's taking care of us? And when I went through my healing, and I went through really, really deep level of just, soul bearing kind of healing at some retreats, I hired an executive coach. I ended up getting certified in tools to help the other healthcare workers. That's my main specialty because we're all in it together, and I think I speak a language where it's mostly healthcare workers that seek me out as their coach and healer. But I run an ongoing subscription kind of into a 12-week healing container where I help people realize what might be holding them back, where they might need support, and I give them accountability, and we're all in there together. We give each other camaraderie, and so that's what I do. But then you don't have to be a healthcare worker. I think all of us have a unifying thread, Sami, where we're kind of living lives of quiet desperation, and a lot of people are lonely and misunderstood right now. And so these tools that I got certified in, which is called subconscious repatterning, where you get rid of the limiting beliefs and you build in empowering beliefs. They work on anybody, but that's just kind of who I'm around more than anybody else is the healthcare workers. So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now on the side, and it's very fulfilling. That's my passion project. Like you said, this podcast was your passion project.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think, it's really interesting as we think about our career paths and the choices that we make. You talked about your kids, like we have the same conversations with our kids about how do we kind of encourage them to figure out their own journey and their own path without maybe limitations necessarily. But I think we forget to do that for ourselves, or we think like we're at this space, so like this is where we should be in our career, or this is where like what people are going to deem as successful. And so I just love your story so much because it's I am successful on paper or I'm doing great, but this isn't fueling me. This isn't lighting me up. This isn't my why. And I'm going to figure out a way to kind of do it differently and do it on my own. So, I guess, like, would your advice be to people, because it doesn't matter if it's your career, if it's whatever, would your advice be to just kind of start to speak some of the things that you're excited about and kind of open you up? And some of these opportunities will maybe kind of start to find you, or you'll start to have conversations with people differently that will kind of lead you. Because sometimes we don't know where we're going. We just know that this isn't it.
Yeah. I'll tell you, my best advice is to really get honest with yourself and kind of don't be afraid of the negative emotions. I think sometimes we're afraid of uncovering some anger that might be underneath or some sadness. And we think if we admit that something isn't fulfilling us, then what were we doing these last 30 years? But like we're exactly where we need to be right now. I couldn't have broken out of full-time medicine and realized that this other piece and way of doing it was so much more fulfilling to me unless I had experienced 30 years of being frustrated. And I wasn't frustrated the whole 30 years, but you have to let that contrast be in your life, Sami. You can't just only at like the emotions that you're allowed to experience are happiness and peace and contentment and creativity. I mean, there's got to be some darker, there's got to be that duality. And so I think if people can spend some time with themselves, be really honest with themselves, and then journaling is my favorite way. I meditate and then I journal afterwards. I will get such clarity when I meditate and be really quiet. There's Hertz music, and there's like it's kind of this, I don't even know, it's like all kinds of different Hertz. You can find them on Spotify or YouTube, and it kind of gets you into a relaxed state. And if you can just kind of meditate in silence and just listen to your breathing and then that music, and just think about what it is that you're experiencing right now in your life, and then give yourself some time to journal, some things will come out because it kind of connects you to your subconscious mind, the writing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's so good. And I love having that kind of, meditating is hard for me because I can't sit in silence. I can't do anything in silence. I always have to have noise going on around me. So I love like using the rhythm of the music to like help you pull that together. I think that's interesting. I'll have to do some more. Maybe I'll have to give meditation a try again, because holy cow. I know for me, the biggest problem is trying to do too many different things. So I have a lot of ideas, but I have a hard time honing in on, like, if I have an idea, I want to do it right now. And so that's where I'm always trying to work on myself, is that, okay, like, what's going to make the biggest impact on the clients that we work with or the people that are listening to the podcast? How can we focus and not do too many things? So do you find that to be a struggle for you too? Like, now that you're kind of opening up this new entrepreneurial side of your work and your life, like, are you finding it easy to focus and really kind of support the work that you're doing? Or are you now like kind of like a pinball trying to come up with all these other things that you're just excited about?
Girl brain, man. I mean, it is so hard, isn't it? Like, there's just so much. Like, I want to do my posting. I want to do my emails. I want to do my client sales calls. I want to do the meditations, or I call them clearings, where we clear out the junk in our subconscious mind. I want to do it all myself. I want to be the group coaching, administrator person. I just want to do all of it, but I have to hire a VA because I cannot get into that monkey brain. And then I have to be brutally honest with myself and batch it, by different activities. I'll say, you only have 1 hour to write your podcast, not your podcast, your email. So yesterday, like I gave myself only 15 minutes. I had to write my email for this week, and I was having a really hard time, just like you, being in the silence. And so I went for a walk and I spoke it into my phone. And then I, went into Google Docs and edited it this morning and sent it to my VA. I said, I don't want to look at it again. Send it out. Here's the pictures and here's the email. But you have to be like I don't want to use the word neurotic because that sounds negative, but like a ninja. How about we'll say that? Ninja. A ninja with your time. And you have to say, I'm only going to get on social media for this amount of time, or I'm only going to work on that email for this amount of time. Right now, I'm working on another webinar. And I'm having, that's really hard for me to sit down and focus to get those slides done. So yeah, I'm finding it harder and harder and harder. So I just have to be like a ninja with my schedule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. The life of an entrepreneur, right? Well, Cindy, you have an incredible story, and I just love how, like, even throughout all of it, like, you can really see that continuity of wanting to support people while also supporting yourself, not just financially, but emotionally, and in the things that you love to do that light you up. So if somebody's listening to this today and they just got that nagging idea that's been in the back of their head for a long time, but they just haven't taken action, can you maybe give them, like, 3 steps, like, just start here. Like, these are 3 things that you can do today to maybe take one step forward towards working towards that goal?
Yeah, well, I think the best thing for people to do is, number 1, carve out some time to do it. Okay. And minimize distractions. My phone is always on silent, except for when I'm working with patients. And and get yourself, I mean, if you have to use noise canceling headphones, whatever you have to do to like get yourself into a zone. So block out the time and maximize your chances for success by turning off the distractions and then using the noise canceling headphones if you have to. And then write out, I would recommend they do a brain dump of everything they want, so that they'll take their end goal at the bottom and then they'll write all the steps imaginable possible that would be needing to be done to accomplish that goal. And then get really brutally honest with your calendar and your schedule. Don't be afraid of opening up. Some people don't like to look in their checkbook registry. Some people don't like to look at their bills. I think some people also don't like looking at their calendar because they know it's overfilled. They know it's going to be a failure, that it's impossible to do all that they want to do. But you have to be able to open it up and look at it and be honest with yourself, and just start with 15-minute increments of time. And even if you just got one thing done for 15 minutes once a week, then once you do it once a week for a few weeks, then do it, twice a week, and just start small and just keep at it. And get support. The third thing, get some support and some accountability from a friend that cares about you.
Yeah, that is real good, great, tangible advice. I love
Thank
that. Well, Cindy, so many good things. I know we could probably talk forever and ever and ever. But if people want to connect with you, learn more about kind of the work that you do, or just, learn more about you in general, how can they do that?
Yes, I say the one-stop shop is always my website, drscindystark.com. But I mean, I am on Instagram and Facebook at Cindy Stark. But at my website, it just has a real easy link for all of those. And I also, there on drscindystark.com, I have a link that you can book a 15-minute call with me. And I would love to just talk to people and see if there's anything that I can help them out with. And if I can't, I can, refer them to somebody else. And also, I have a 30-minute training there that I did. It's a few years old. That's the one I'm working on repeating. I'm working on changing the webinar right now. But there is one there that talks all about what I do with the subconscious. And if it seems like a fit for you, then just reach out to me and watch that training, and we can get in touch with each other.
I love that. And we will link up everything in the show notes at easystylewithsami.com/30. So you can grab all of those there. But Cindy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me and for this opportunity to speak to your listeners. I really appreciate this today.
Thank you so much to Cindy for joining me on this episode of Easy Style with Sami. If you're going through adversity, if you're going through struggles, it's really just a great reminder to do what you love, care about what you're doing, and focus on what you really need. And that's going to help you navigate through all of the challenges that you're going through now. And if Cindy can do it, you can do it too. So make sure you check out the show notes at easystylewithsami/29. That's SAMI. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. Thank you so much for being a part of the Easy Style with Sami community. I hope you will join us for our next episode. And make sure you go to easystylewithsami.com. We publish blog posts and podcast episodes every week, so you can check them out, get some resources, build the life you love, and have a great time doing it. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next one.